Hello! So it's been a while since I've last been on. With the holidays coming up and all, I haven't had time to vlog. And I also have a lot of big projects coming due, so this is kind of taking like a backseat. But I'm back, and I'm combining two responses into this one vlog because I'm going to be talking about fractions and decimals. And fractions and decimals go hand in hand together. So we're going to have a fraction decimal vlog. It's doing two. So here we go. So we're going to start with fractions. Excuse me. And one thing with fractions that's kind of with like everything else is the kids should start with estimation. Estimation helps them realize that like a half, 1/2, is less than 3/4. So if they know that they're adding a half and a half, it's going to be less than 3/4 and 3/4. So estimation is good. They also suggest that a problem-based number sense approach is best, which has 4 steps. Use context, use models. Models are really good because it helps students visualize what's going on and makes light bulbs click. Include the estimation and address misconceptions, like it's not a 1/2, it's 1/2. It stands for 1 divided by 2. Because if they think it's just 1/2 plus 1/2, then you're just going to add the ones, put the line in, and then add the 2's, which isn't the way they're supposed to do that. So, and also let kids come up with their own methods when learning to add and subtract and multiply and divide fractions. Because just like with whole numbers, it's important for them to make their own strategies and then teach them the standard, because it's going to be more meaningful to them if they go through the whole math process and are learning all these really good math things, even though it might not be the standard way of doing it. But then when you teach them the standard way, they're going to be like, oh, like, this makes sense because I did this part in mine and I heard Bobby use this method, and so it's going to help them click more. So having them create their own methods and having them talk about why those methods work is really good. And then using for both fractions and decimals, I'm going to switch into decimals here, you want to use like a linear model. So you want to use like a number line so that they can see here's 0, here's 1, here's a 1/4, here's a 1/2, here's a 3/4, and everything that goes in there. And the same with the decimals, like a 1/4 is 25/100ths, a 1/2 is 5/10ths, and 3/4 is 75/100ths. So it's important for them to see that. So now let's go to decimals. So as I said before, fractions and decimals go hand in hand, and a lot of the methods that can be used to help students understand fractions can also be used to help students understand decimals. One thing, I'm going to hold this up because it's hard to explain. They suggest using this model, which is what they're also using when they're doing thousands, hundreds, tens, ones. Now you're just breaking like the ones down even more and doing tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and having them break down the cubes even more so they can see that relationship. Might be a little hard to do depending on what you use, but it's a good way to get them introduced using models like we do with fractions also. And you also need to address misconceptions. Like we talked about how with fractions the line's not just a line, it means you're dividing. Well, with decimals you don't want to say 0.5 or 0.25 or 1.25 because that point means something. So you want to really get students in the habit of using, this is 5/10. This is 25/100. You really want to get them using that terminology. And then one way to really connect fractions to, there we go, my book doesn't like me sometimes, fractions to decimals is that we talked about how the line means divide in a fraction. Well, if you have a kid take that fraction and say, I want you to divide your numerator by your denominator, and they see if you take 3/4, that it comes out to be 75 thousandths, hundredths, not thousands, hundredths. So they see that relationship. We also talked about how using a number line in fractions is important. Well, one number line that you can use when talking about decimals is a ruler, because they're already there. And the students can see those relationships, and it makes more sense because you're using something that they have used before, so they're making those connections there. So you can see that there's a lot of overlap between how you would teach fractions and how you would teach decimals, and that they can really go hand in hand and you can work on them together. So that's the end of this one, and I'll be back shortly with another one because this whole vlog thing is due Thursday. So I'll be back shortly. See you then.